Hey, there you are. Welcome back. Episode 14 of the Secret Guitar Club. Today, my guest is Lindsay Straw of Boston. Lindsay is a player and singer who draws her inspiration from the timeless music of the British Isles. Really beautiful playing. She does play a little bit in this video, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I'm very grateful to Lindsay for her time and for joining the club here. She has a band called The New Grown Ups and will be playing around at festivals throughout New England this summer. You can check out those dates at lindsaystraw.com. Please like and subscribe to the video. Help me keep this thing going, and I hope you enjoy this chat with Lindsay. Hey, good morning, Lindsay. Thank you very much for joining the club. How are you?
I'm good, Brian. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to meet you in person. I follow you on Instagram, and it looks like you're doing some really cool stuff, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. I spent some time on your website. It looks like you're from Montana. Is that right?
I am. Yeah, that's where I grew up.
Cool. So tell me about like how you started playing. Was music always in your family around the house?
No, I mean, my mom is certainly a big fan of music, and she's a very epic car singer. But yeah, none of my family was really very musical in terms of like playing instruments or anything like that. But I really loved choir when I was a kid, and then eventually, like a lot of folks, discovered the Beatles and '60s music, and then Simon and Garfunkel. So that was kind of how I fell in love with guitar.
Yes, those early like acoustic folk stuff. Like I love
Mhm,
Simon and Garfunkel. I have a lot of like core memories as a child listening to them with in
mhm,
the car with my parents.
mhm.
That's so cool. So then I saw that you're in Boston now, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Cool. And when did you move out to Boston? It looks like you went to Berkeley. So did you move to Boston to go to Berkeley?
Yeah, so I graduated. I went to Boston. I first came here in 2005 when I came to Berkeley to go to college. So yeah, basically once I was 18, moved out here. I'd gone to one of Berkeley's summer programs the year before and just fell in love with it. So that was all I needed.
Nice, nice. So was it like in high school that you decided that you wanted to pursue music? When was it that you decided that was going to be your trajectory?
Yeah, like I always knew I'd go to college for something, and up until maybe like the age of like 16 or so, thought it would be like English or maybe like linguistics or something like that. But then just got really obsessed with music, and I feel like that was in the era when everybody was like, "Do what you want, kid! Like follow your dreams." And I started looking into music schools and found Berkeley and discovered that it was also a contemporary music school as opposed to a lot of the more classical focused schools where I felt like I probably wouldn't have quite been able to fit in because I didn't have that classical background and was a little bit more unconventional, contemporary on that side of things. So yeah, basically once that really took hold when I was 16 or 17, that was the decision for better or worse.
Nice. Well, you did listen to your dreams and you did, kudos to you because it sounds like you're doing that, right? Are you playing music full time?
I do, yeah, I do that, and I teach a little bit on the side too. So yeah,
Yeah.
keeping a lot of different balls in the air.
Not many people listen to that intuition and just go with it. So that's great that you did and followed it. Um, were you always into like sort of the folk and Celtic stuff in high school, or what else were you listening to back then?
I I kind of got into it a little bit sideways, I guess, because yeah, like we mentioned Simon and Garfunkel, so I was into just like '60s rock and stuff like that, and then sort of started working my way into the more acoustic side of things by way of Simon and Garfunkel, and then Joan Baez, and that there's the track that Paul Simon plays, Angie, which eventually I discovered was actually written by Davy Graham, which led me over to the British folk
Hmm.
fingerstyle players, and then got into Bert Jansch and John Renbourn and Pentangle, and so that was what I was really into right before I came to Berkeley. So I was kind of aware of like I didn't really understand sort of the full scope of Celtic music at that point. I knew about it through like sort of the psychedelic folk era and sort of the stuff that popped up in like new age music at the time. So, I mean, that was like late '90s, early 2000s. So that was kind of all over a lot of movie soundtracks. And this one radio show I used to listen to all the time would sometimes have like I used to record it on old tapes, and I was just listening to some the other day, and like they had, people pop up like Leo Kottke, and you're like, oh, that's no wonder that's like been in my brain even before I kind of knew to recognize them. So I was
Yeah.
starting to go down that road, and then I got to Berkeley, and found that I thought I'd have to do more jazz, but then that was sort of the era where the acoustic music program was a little bit of a fledgling concept, And so teachers like John McGann were there, giving guitarists and mandolin players an opportunity to really just focus on bluegrass and Celtic and old time and stuff like that. So I got to take lessons with him for a little while, and then he got me into the realm of like, here's what like an Irish session is. And then from there, it's been like, yeah, pretty hardcore trad ever since.
Yeah, that's really cool. I want to get into Berkeley. I've got a couple questions about that, but I was wondering, did you listen to any Donovan at all? I don't know if he's like super
I did,
fingerstyle, but
yeah.
I love that. I love Donovan. I saw him in the late '90s in a middle school auditorium play, and it was
Oh,
just
funny.
one of the coolest concerts I remember being at.
I kind of forgot about him. I did really like him though. I had at least one or two CDs of his music when I
Yeah,
was a kid.
he's the man. So I was curious, when you get to Berkeley, do you kind of choose that track? Like you mentioned, you were in sort of a acoustic, like if a student who's into like metal, are they taking a different track that they provide? How does that work there?
Yeah, so with Berkeley, so you have your principal and then you have your major.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was a guitar principal, and at the time I switched majors a couple of times, but I thought starting out I would do a performance major and then something else, do like a dual major plan. And basically, yeah, you can sort of you choose your private instructor based on whatever your sort of your primary stylistic interest is, and you do have to meet certain requirements regardless of what you're playing. So like you do have to play through all these different scales and chord voicings and things that maybe don't apply to like a lot of folk music, but you could also still be focusing on like learning pieces in whatever style of music that you want to focus on. So it might be different now. I mean, it's been almost 20 years, well, solid 20 years at this point since I started. But yeah, so you kind of had some flexibility as far as the style within the framework of, meeting those requirements.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's definitely, it's got to be quite the education for someone who really wants to learn. I'm curious, when you got there and you were delving in, I spoke with a guy a few episodes ago, Jeff Rady, who I think was there about the same time you were. He was telling me how at Berkeley he got scaled to death. He was just like so done with scales.
Yeah.
So when you're doing it and you're so into it as an education, does it take the fun out of it a little bit, or did it like amplify the fun? You know?
I mean, I never really felt that it took the fun out of it, but I feel like sort of the requirement to barrel through so many concepts at once, or so many concepts relatively quickly, meant that I didn't like I intellectually understood all these different scales and I had a sense of how to play them, but I didn't really know how to use them. So, which I mean, they're obviously you still have the data in the background, so you can eventually do with it what you will. But I feel like the speed at which you have to kind of do things is maybe not ideal, or like the degree of like cramming that you end up doing. So yeah, I wouldn't say it ruined the fun, but I'm not sure that I truly integrated all the information very well.
Yeah, it gave you the framework to like kind of build on and
Yeah.
and go from there. So that's really, really cool. And then tell me about what you play. I mean, you play guitar and you play a number of instruments, right?
I just play guitar and Irish bouzouki.
Okay.
Not nearly as multi-instrumental as a lot of folks in
Okay.
the space that I occupy, but yeah, that's kind of it. Because I feel like I have a little bit of musical ADHD otherwise, so it's like I probably kind of have to be just a single or double instrument person because I play Celtic music and I have a regular session that I play where I'm backing. I have the fingerstyle stuff that I do, and then I play in this 8-person like old time bluegrassy Americana band. So that's the focus there is more on all these different songs kind of in those traditions, plus taking solos, plus backing in a different style from Celtic backing. So yeah, that's kind of the general scope of what I do.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. And the bouzouki, I think I know what that is. That's like the big rounded back on it, right?
It can be, yeah. So there's the Greek bouzouki, which was originally sort of integrated into Irish music in the 60s by folks like Johnny Moynihan and Andy Irvine. And then as luthiers started seeing them sort of become popular, they started building their own instruments that evolved into this more octave mandolin-like thing, but with some different quirks about it that bear having the qualification Irish bouzouki versus Greek bouzouki or octave mandolin.
Yeah. Cool. That's really cool. And I love that you focus on fingerstyle. That's what I like to play when I sit on my couch and play my acoustic guitar. What sort of brought you into fingerstyle? When did you start to focus on it? Was it at Berkeley? Was it before, maybe in high school? And tell me more about that.
Yeah, that was sort of my just default mode. I don't know why that's what I gravitated. I mean, I think obviously like having influences like Paul Simon were a big part of that, but
Yeah.
that just made more sense to me than playing with a pick. Obviously like you do play with a pick a little bit when you're first learning and like working through those early books, but there's something about just the approach of it that really made sense for me. And then when I feel like I kind of had a bit of a sense of style when I had this one teacher right before I came to Berkeley who recommended growing nails. And so that made a huge difference of helping to be like, oh, this is more of like, this isn't just like a little quiet bedroom thing. This is giving me a little bit more tone, a little bit more volume. And then I took some classical classes at Berkeley with a teacher named Apostolos Paraskevas, who I think that era really sort of set especially my right hand technique, kind of, or like really defined it at that point in time.
Do you play with, is it especially your thumbnail? Is that what you have going?
Yeah, I've got nails on all well, I don't really, pinky doesn't count for me, but yeah, all four fingers.
Yeah, and you use that. Like I don't use that, and I feel the same way. I just feel more connected to the guitar. I like the sound of the way my fingers sound better than a pick. I just am more comfortable with it. And curious, sometimes when I do strum, I kind of pretend that I'm holding a pick and strum that way. And I think I use my index fingernail. Do you ever do that, or is that like a thing that
I
people?
personally don't because I do play with a pick so much nowadays.
Oh, you do, yeah.
Yeah, it still feels a little. I'm still really kind of struggling with just different elements of like right hand technique. Like I'm always thinking about like, oh, am I doing this wrong or this right? Or like, oh, should I try this pick or that pick? Which I know is kind of like an endless process that everybody goes through. But yeah, so I kind of think of them as very separate. I either am playing with a pick
Gotcha.
or I'm not.
So I'm sorry, I think I missed that then. Are you using a pick on your thumb that you
No, I've never been a thumb pick
like?
person because I could never find any that fit
Yeah,
earlier on. And more recently, I did find one that works pretty nicely. But I feel like I've developed the classical style approach
Gotcha.
so much that it's a little bit hard for me to readjust and to have like that sort of more like flat against. So where your thumb is coming at that angle versus the kind of more dead on angle. So haven't really cultivated that quite as much.
Do you have anything that you play automatically when you pick up the guitar for the first time that day? Are there any certain riffs or anything that you go to?
Kind of, yeah, whatever, like maybe fiddle tune I'm working on at the moment, or yeah, just different like little fingerstyle tunes I've written or arranged, or also sometimes be the default thing that pops out.
You don't have a guitar handy by chance, do you?
I have several handy.
Would you mind just playing for a little bit? I'd love to hear you.
Sure.
How many guitars do you have?
1, 2, 3, 4. I've got the classical. I think I only have 5 right now. Yeah, I think that's it.
And do they kind of come and go? Do you have a favorite that is like your go-to, and then you kind of Facebook Marketplace some others, whatever you see, kind of?
I'm not a big like flipper or anything. I'm kind of in a weird situation right now where this guitar I actually did buy, and I did like kind of go through, like I had a couple callings over the years and sold my last callings to buy this, which is a handmade guitar by Laurent Brandel, who's up in Maine actually. And it was sort of my big investment instrument, and I don't foresee ever selling it. I do really love it. And then maybe like a year or two after that, because I don't know if this is something that popped up for you when you were looking at my website or anything like that, but I've worked for a couple different guitar stores over the years. And one of the last ones I worked at was a place down in Nashville, and the main focus was working with small or like single shop luthiers. And so I have a lot of friends who are builders, and I have a lot of connections in that world. And there were a couple of guitars that had come in maybe like a couple of years prior that had just kind of sat and not sold, made by my friend Virgil Pilon, who his working name is Blind Guitars. And so one day he was like, he's in France, so he couldn't just bring them back over very easily because import duties are so high. And he was just like, listen, I change my models all the time. I don't like instruments to just sit and not be sold. Do you want these guitars? Like, you can give one to someone else. Like, I know you'll make videos with it, and like you'll play them a lot, and you know that maybe that'll. I think there was like some element of like helping to sort of get his name out there a little bit too. So I was like, hell yeah, I'll take those guitars, no problem.
Yeah.
And then my friend Jeff Jewett, who is also a builder, but he's in Cleveland, kind of a similar thing. One of his guitars had been at that store, the North American Guitar, for a long time and hadn't sold. And he brought it back to Cleveland, and it was one that I had really liked and had tried to sell, but it just, the reasons why guitars don't sell, it's often not the fault of the guitar at all. It's just like weird trends in the market. But he was like, "Hey, do you want this guitar too? You want to be an official Jewett Guitars artist?" And I was like, "Of course, yes." So I have several guitars that I feel like I could not part with because I both because I love them, but also because I have that direct relationship with the builders. So yeah, I'm not.
That's a really cool story, and they might as well be played rather than just sit around, you know?
Exactly, yeah. Because I mean, yeah, there are so many amazing luthiers who are building so many great guitars, but the way the market works with like, it's like if you don't have like your moment where your name just like really blows up or something like that, if you're just,
Yeah.
it's very weird, like, and like the way like pricing works into it too. Like sometimes I think that if you price higher, it kind of makes people think that they're better even when they're not necessarily better. It's like a whole weird like psychology thing, but
It is a funny thing, and I'm sort of delving into the whole, learning about all these people, and I'm thinking about them more and more as just artists.
yeah,
They're
they
obviously
are.
building guitars, and they are art, but it's very similar to like how an artist works, and how they go about selling their product, and pricing it and all that stuff. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and they often try like really interesting new techniques or like build
Yeah.
styles or different tone woods. And if that tone wood just isn't like really hip in the moment, then sometimes it'll sit for no good reason. But it's like a beautiful guitar that if the right person just found it and played
Yeah.
it, they would fall in love. So
Yeah.
it's a funny industry.
I'd love to hear you play. Is it possible before you start to tilt your camera down a little bit
Oh,
more so
sure.
we can see your playing your guitar?
Just make sure I'm in tune.
Yeah.
Everything's a little wacky right now.
The temperature and humidity is changing right now in our area, in the New England area. Getting a little bit more humid air.
Surprisingly, everything went a little flat. What would I play?
Before you start, can you tilt your camera down a little bit? Is
Yeah,
it possible for you to do
before
that?
I do that, I was going to think about what I'm going to play first.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, and that'll do.
And I'm sorry to put you on the spot. Yeah, there you go. That's perfect.
No worries.
That is beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that sounds really, really nice. Yeah, you're a beautiful player. And you're using all three of your fingers, right, on your
Yeah.
picking hand?
Hmm.
And do you stay pretty strict to one for each string down?
Yeah, more or less until, unless it's something where you're doing like a single line run on the same string or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Are there any, are you still practicing and learning? I'm
Oh,
sure you're practicing, of course, but do you consider yourself like a continuous learner?
oh yeah, definitely. Like I'm still like currently both for like students that I have, but also for myself. I do try to take solos in certain settings, and I do not feel like I'm very good at it. So my current project right now is to like learn some fiddle tunes so that I can get a better sense of like just playing melodically, like really consistently, down up, down up, down up, and also working on scales. And like mapping them out in a way that is actually kind of more useful in the context of the music that I'm playing, like rather than trying to, again, like Berkeley style, barrel through and learn like melodic minor in every key or whatever. Like, okay, let's just slow down and go back to like, let's just map out G all over the neck. Let's map out C all over the neck, because 99.9% of the time in, like a bluegrass or old time setting, everything is in those two keys and you're just capoing around. So it's like
Yeah.
figure out how to work with those two keys and figure out how to phrase things in those two keys.
That's a really good piece of advice, I think, because it's a little overwhelming otherwise to try to like learn them all. But if you just focus on G or C, I have found that to be helpful for me recently in trying to learn. Like, let's just work on G
Yeah,
and
right.
figure out where that is all over the neck.
Yeah.
I'm trying to just explore the neck more these days, and that's been helpful.
Yeah.
Do you have any favorite like practice routines that you recommend to people? Like, is there any go-to like work on this?
I wish I had a better like I'm a little bit chaotic and undisciplined myself. Like I always tell people like, all right, whatever amount of time you have, try to like split it into like fours or thirds or whatever, and if you've got like some exercises you're working on, have that be one quadrant, and then like pieces that you want to just kind of keep fresh, like that can be your other like however you want to sort of package it. Like I try to kind of work with each student to find what makes the most sense for them. And then for myself, like, yeah, I think what I've kind of realized more recently is I need to maybe do like a bit of an arc for the whole week. And because like right now I'm kind of mentally taking a bit of a step back from worrying about fingerstyle as much. That way I can put more focus on the flat pick stuff, not just the single line, but also my sense of rhythm, because I feel like that really still needs a lot of work. So maybe I just have 1 or 2 days where I really concentrate on fingerstyle, but then the rest of the week it's more focused on the flat pick stuff. And that way I'm kind of keeping the muscles fresh on some things, but I'm focusing more on the other things. And then of course there's also just like the stuff that you're learning for gigs, like I've got wedding gigs where I need to learn some songs, or like I'm learning a piece for a friend's recital next month. Like, yeah, finding different ways to package all that in I have not mastered it, but I'm trying.
Yeah. I'm sure that's helpful to kind of step away from fingerstyle for a little bit. When you're playing as much as you do, it's probably helpful to kind of step away and then come back to it refreshed, and you probably feel like you are better. Like sometimes when I step away from the guitar for a few days or a week or so, I come back and I feel like, I feel like I've improved with some time away. Do you ever feel like that?
I don't, not, I can't say I really do. And yeah, the tough thing for me, and this has been kind of a struggle for years, that like when I do really focus on one thing, I often do feel like the other thing really suffers. So, and fingerstyle was such a part of my personality and like my sense of self for a long time that like anytime that felt like I was really taking away from that, felt like, oh, but this is the thing that like people know me for and that I'm good at. And like if like my friend calls me to do some demos at the Music Emporium and it's like a solo thing, like I can't, like I'm not gonna rip some flat pick solos for that stuff. Yeah, I need to do fingerstyle. So if I've not been practicing that at all, then I'm gonna feel like kind of out of pocket a little bit. But
Yeah.
you have to kind of choose your growth,
Yep.
for whatever point in time, and just I think make some sacrifices here and there, and then yeah, you always can come back to it. And like I do have a pretty solid sense of like, okay, if I'm going to practice fingerstyle, I've got like a little bit of a routine down, and I know what to do to feel like I've got a handle on it again. So
Yeah.
so yeah.
Cool. Well, I can't really remember how I started following you on Instagram. I think maybe you just popped up and I clicked follow. But you really kind of took me by surprise a week or so ago when you were kind of in my neighborhood out on Peaks Island doing like a little like weekend away with some musicians or something like that. Can you tell me about that? It looked like a lot of fun.
Yeah, so it was actually a midweek away because we wanted to plan it so that musicians who are obviously typically busy on weekends could all go. So I have to say, we're calling it the Peaks Island Retreat, or we have a lot of different potential titles for it, some of which are a little bit jokey, but I'll get into that later. But basically the idea started, it wasn't my idea originally, it was my friend Owen Marshall's idea, and because he has this connection with this woman on Peaks Island named Ellen Mahoney, who is like just I think a force of nature in terms of like generating events and connections and like all sorts of things around music on Peaks Island. Like she organizes contra dances. During the pandemic, she was telling us that they would host musicians at their house and have them do like porch concerts for the neighborhood, and they could stay in one part of their house, and it was all very like, safe and COVID, respectful. But yeah, she really does a ton of stuff to bring music to Peaks Island and to encourage the local or regional musical scene. And was just
I should interview her.
You should interview her. She would be really cool to talk to. Awesome person. But yeah, so she has this house that she basically she lends out to musicians if they're there to do concerts or if they want to do retreats or something like that. And so Owen had that connection, and he had this idea after talking to our mutual friend Helen that like he knows all these women who play guitar in the Celtic music scene, and I mean, we're outnumbered by a fair amount. Like there are fewer of us than there are of the guys, and we often don't get to hang out with each other because we're often doing gigs at separate times, or at the same time rather. And I think he just felt like a sense of wanting to like give space for like the ladies to have a thing.
Yeah.
And so but he was like, but it would be weird for me as a guy to be organizing this. So, hey, do you want to be a part of this? And I was like, hell yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So we talked about it and had this idea that it would be good to, plan it for some time, like a midweek era where maybe in springtime, like after St. Patrick's Day, when, Celtic musicians are obviously very busy, but before the summer when everybody's busy with all kinds of things, festivals, etc. And then put together a list of folks, both in New England and outside of New England, who we thought would love to be a part of it. And we expanded it not to just be guitar, but also to be bouzouki players and mandolin players as well. And so, we put out a call to a bunch of folks, and there was, I think everybody was at least somewhat interested, but not everybody could make the dates. Basically, we did a poll, and like the certain dates lined up with like 6 of us, but then a couple of folks couldn't make it, so it ended up being just 4 of us. But it was really lovely. We just got to go and hang, and going into it, I kind of had a sense of, or like I was like, oh, should we have more plans? Like, is it weird to just go hang out? And then we got there, and I was like, oh no, this was exactly the right call to not have any plans, because so often when we see each other, it's at a camp or it's at a festival, and we don't get to just hang with each other. Like it's maybe you get to talk during a meal, or you see each other in passing at the festival, and it's like, oh, so great to see you, but we never get to just hang and play tunes and learn from each other, talk about our experiences, etc. And so just having a few days to do just that on obviously a very beautiful island where the weather was great, like it was so wonderful and restorative. And I have a little bit of like, I guess like guilt about like, oh, I don't want to like not include the boys or whatever, but I think everybody should have like a little space to do their thing with the people who they have the most in common with sometimes, and that it was just really lovely to have that experience.
Boys have a lot of weekends away, boys' weekends. You guys have to have your girls' weekends too,
Exactly, yeah.
So, well, it was funny. I reached out to you after that because I was like, wait a second, do I know this person? Is she in my neighborhood? For those who don't know, Peaks Island is an island just off of Portland, Maine, in Casco Bay. It's actually part of Portland, Maine. And there's a little quick ferry to get out there. It's a beautiful spot, great place to go ride bikes. So that was just really cool. That looked like a lot of fun. I saw that. I'm like, wait a second, I want to talk to Lindsay. So yeah, thank you so much for joining the channel. Tell people where they can find you and learn more about you.
LindsayStraw.com, on Instagram @LindsayStraw, YouTube. I think also if you type in youtube.com /@LindsayStraw or Lindsay Straw Music, it all comes up. Trying to do the blue sky thing, but it doesn't seem like a lot of other musicians are really doing that. But yeah, all over the usual channels, and doing lots of gigs this summer with my different bands and solo and all that sort of thing. So I'm very easy to find, I think.
Very cool. Well, I hope to catch you out sometime. Thank you so much again for joining. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks for having me.
All right.